Hi guys, welcome to Purple Angles. I'm Stephanie,
And I'm Natalie.
where we bring back healthy conversation.
And the beauty of divergent opinions.
Today we'll be speaking about dieting and mental health. So to start, please, Natalie, can you tell us a bit more about the data regarding dieting and mental health?
Yes, of course. So we're going to speak about food disorders and the impact it does have on mental health, how it kind of changed throughout the last decades, how people are perceiving it today, and what's our opinion on it. So first, I would like to share with you what the true definition of food disorder is, or eating disorder actually is. So an eating disorder is a complex mental health condition characterized by inappropriate relationship with food. Eating disorders are caused by the consequences of another mental condition, negative body image in the media, genetics, and trauma. So first, how do you feel about this definition? Because I know we had a conversation already about it. What's your input when it comes to that definition?
I think the word appropriate bothers me a little bit, as if there's one appropriate, and I can understand the risks of not putting that word, because there are some, like there's extremes. There's not eating enough or eating too much, but what is appropriate, and I think it's a gray area, which is I find challenging, because there's always, personally, there's always like something that feels inappropriate, because we don't have a clear data of what is the clear appropriate food eating pyramid of what everyone should have. So having that word just seems like a little bit inappropriate. I don't know if it's the right word, but yeah, it just I don't know if you understand what I mean, or if the
No,
audience understands.
no, I totally understand, and I agree with you. The word inappropriate is very vague, and what does that mean? It can be very different in my dictionary than it is in yours. I think, to me, when I hear that, when I see that definition, what inappropriate means, it's more when it affects your daily life, when it becomes something that's taking too much space in your mental, and that word becomes inappropriate. And I'll be happy to speak more about it with you. What I've also wanted to share with our listeners today is also how food disorders and eating disorders have actually progressed a lot in the past 20 years. When we looked at the statistics and how many people kind of suffer from eating disorders, we see that in North America, in the United States, we're talking approximately 9% of people suffer from eating disorders, will or have suffered from eating disorders. So that's pretty significant. What I found to be even more interesting is that when we look at globally, internationally, we saw that the rate of eating disorders has actually more than doubled in the last 20 years. So it went from 3.4% to 7.8% in the past 20 years. So that is showing us that it's becoming more and more prevalent, and that's something that we need to take into account and to look into. And another data that I saw that I think is also very impactful is, especially when you look at kids, I think we see that it's starting earlier, unfortunately. And when we looked at adolescent girls, we see that it's actually the third most chronic condition in adolescent girls. So that's not something that's small. That means it's actually part of their daily lives, and we definitely need to stop and kind of have that conversation about the impact of those food disorders and that eating disorders on the mental health of our girls, of our boys as well, because it's not only on women and girls too, but for a general population as well. So when you see that, when you hear that, how do you feel about it, and what does that tell you?
I think I want to just bring some clarification about like not dieting, but food disorder, because I don't know what clicks in the audience's mind, but like a lot of people would click like, oh, maybe anorexia only, but there's also binge eating disorder. There's also other types of anorexia, like bulimia. So there are many, like the spectrum is broad, and I think that should just be taken into account. It's not one spectrum or the other. It's really like under eating, under nutrients, or overeating and not being able to control, which leads me to speak about the body positivity movement. And we hear about it a lot in the media, and we see a lot of this growing, accepting how you are, accepting that it's okay to have any type of shape of body. I'm a bit uncomfortable with the whole trend of accepting, not of accepting, I'm sorry, but of portraying that lifestyle. Because if someone is overeating and they're obese, or they're okay, I understand the fact of accepting yourself and accepting how you're looking, and loving yourself despite that. But it's also looking in the mirror and being honest and saying like, hey, something's off. I'm not being able to control the way I eat. And by following this trend of body positivity, it's like saying you don't have, like, everything's okay with you. And it's not understanding that, hey, maybe there's something underneath that you're not dealing with that is important. And the same goes with anorexia, and on the other side of the spectrum, where you're under eating and we're promoting like slim, also like the trend, like it's always varying. There's always a trend in the world. Either it's like too slim, too fat, too the booty, the this, the that. There's always a trend which kind of tries to define what is appropriate. That bothers me more than the body positivity per se, as accepting who you are, which is the first step to change. But yeah, I'd like to hear your side of what you think of all this.
I think I mean, when it comes to dieting or food disorders, because we're covering the whole spectrum, right? Food disorders are directly linked with mental health issues. And I think that's something we definitely need to put an emphasis on. It is beyond just, having difficulty choosing what to eat, or wanting to do a diet to lose 5 pounds, or it's way more complex than dieting, for example. I think it goes back to initially dieting and food disorders. When you look back, it really started with, a lot of it started with what was shown in the media. And back then it was a lot of, thinness. And the thinner you were, the better you look. The standard of beauty have definitely changed. And this is something that always changes throughout time. At some point, like you were saying, women that were more curvaceous were considered more beautiful than women that were more thin. And then, you get to the 90s and it's a different perspective. So, but when we look at all the different medias that are out there, the magazines, the beauty kind of look that we were shown is one of the reasons why a lot of people have decided to either diet, or were maybe, let's say, a factor when it comes to developing a food disorder. So that is something that I think is very, very impactful in our generation today, and but also like 20 years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Now, how do we deal with this? Like, I think that today we kind of went the other way 100%. Like, we went from acknowledging that the media could have a negative impact on body image and how women and men could perceive their bodies, and if they kind of fit, into the beauty standards. Now we went from saying kind of no to that to doing the total opposite, which is accepting every single body type for what it is. And I think that's beautiful. I think there is so much beauty in actually showing, especially adolescent and younger kids, like early on, how it is important to respect your body, love your body for how it looks like, for what it is, whether you're curvaceous or not, or tall or thin or white or black, like all of it, right? Where I do think it becomes dangerous is when we start portraying obesity as being a body positivity message.
Right.
And that to me is where it's dangerous, because you could be a voluptuous woman and that's beautiful. I think that's where it's important. It's not what defines beauty. It's not what shape defines beauty. You could be voluptuous and be beautiful, and you can be thin and be beautiful, but are you healthy? Right. And when we're talking about are you healthy, we're talking about physically healthy and mentally healthy. So these are two different things. And especially in the mental health spectrum of food disorders, most of the times you don't necessarily know someone is struggling with a food disorder. It's not always the extremely thin person that you see, or the person that's on the other side, which is trying to lose weight and doing, whether they're either binging or bulimic or anything like that. that represents food disorders. A lot of people struggle with food disorders and mental health issues related to that without you knowing. And this is where I want us to bring awareness to today. So having that conversation about the whole spectrum, but also about the dangers, I think, of today's body positivity image, which is showing that, you know, you're healthy no matter what. And I don't think that's true. I don't agree with that at all. And we've seen it a lot in the media in the last year. There's been a lot of different ads, and I don't know if you saw them, but there was an ad that was done by Calvin Klein where they had like two different, you know, obese uh, people on it, showcasing, you know, how that, you know, means beauty or how that's healthy. Even health magazines were showing someone on the cover of their page, of, you know, the main cover page, someone that was clearly overweight, and even obese, not just overweight, like obese, and showcasing that as being healthy. That always kind of strikes a chord with me. I don't find that it's a healthy message to share, especially with younger crowd that are, you know, still developing, still kind of trying to find a way, find a sense of self, a sense, you know, their self-esteem through all of this. Like, I understand the intention behind it, but I don't think we're helping our society in being more healthy.
I think there's, like, we see it in so many ads, marketing. The industry of dieting is so huge.
Oh my God, crazy.
So we understand that it is an issue, but by, you know, like, oh, fast weight loss product, or so, like, all of these, or the diets and what works, and like promotions and all this, and it grabs attention and it makes a lot of money because everyone's just trying to grasp what is going to help them lose weight to follow that slimness, without understanding that there's maybe something deeper underneath, that is their relationship with food and their relationship with their emotions, that needs to be addressed more than just the fact of losing weight. So there's a lot of presentation about the image. That's the image that is okay or not okay. That's the way that you should eat versus not eat. But there's nothing that I've seen or that I'm seeing that's like, okay, if you're having that type of body, if you are too thin, too thick, or whatever, based on XYZ, like, everything's about defining the exterior rather than saying, how's your relationship with food? Are you using food to cope with a certain thing? Are you overeating because you're bored? Are you overeating because you don't know how to manage, how to have a conversation with someone, and you're just trying to numb yourself because it increases your dopamine for a specific amount of time? Are you trying, you know what I mean? Everything is so about dieting. What's the right diet? You should be thin, without even considering health sometimes. Like, a lot of these diets is just like, lose weight fast. Okay, how about like gain health and energy? So the marketing message that people grasp on is also based on the trend, as you said, the initial image, like the thinness. And now promoting that, I don't think we've seen yet the effect that this has on a long term. Like, for how long is this going to be promoted? Because it's kind of new.
Yeah.
It's been like a year or two that, like, we're starting to see on magazine, like, obese people. And we're not talking about curves, as you said. We're not talking about like beauty, like stretch marks and stuff, like thing that happens for everyone. We're not talking about this. It's really like obesity to another extent that is being promoted. And I haven't seen yet the effect of that on society. If it's like validating, like if you're eating a bag of chips and you're numbing your emotions and you see this, does that bring you a sense of validation? I'm like, oh, it's okay to eat what I'm eating. Like, it's okay to numb my emotions. So you're not really diving into understanding why you're doing all of this, or understanding, is there something, why am I eating this, which is making me even more addicted to something?
Yeah.
So there's a whole message that makes it even harder for people to understand what's appropriate, what's right, what's wrong, instead of like trying to portray that image. And again, I understand the fact of being aware, and like, you never know what someone is going through, but the same way that someone that's not eating is not necessarily, is not doing necessarily well mentally, emotionally, physically, someone that's overeating either is not necessarily doing well. So it's just a little parenthesis about the challenges of the industry and of that dieting and of that whole industry in terms of mental health, dieting, food disorder is like so prevalent in our daily life that it makes it so hard to define what is appropriate, what is right, what is the impact of everything that's happening.
Yeah, I think the messaging is definitely the problem. I think the messaging should be about being healthy,
Yeah.
feeling good in your body. That's what the messaging should be, being more intuitive with how you're feeling about when you eat something or not eat something. How are you dealing with your emotions? Have you dealt, with your inner work that you have to do to kind of not have to go through this? So I think the messaging is definitely not ideal, and has never been, and still is not. I think it has changed, but it didn't change necessarily for the best.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, with like, we still don't know the impact of what we're seeing today, and on the next generation, and in the next 10, 15, 20 years. That's definitely going to start to show. But as we've seen with history and life, it's always a cycle. Like, even the dieting, like the trends come back. It's always like the same thing every 20, 40 years. And we see that a lot. Unfortunately, it is a huge industry. It is a very, very big industry where a lot of money can be made, and a lot of people want to make money through this industry. So that's what's unfortunate. um, what I think is a little bit, again, dangerous nowadays with the trends that are going on, is that we still have that thinness obsession in our society. We still see it. Before it was with magazines, now it's with reality TV. And we see it a lot with the Kim Kardashians, Khloe Kardashians of the world, where you're seeing them either be curvaceous, and then that becomes the trend, or they're like super thin, and now that's the new trend. And what are they doing to do that? And the quick fixes, right? Everybody wants to have everything quickly. Nobody wants to do the work to actually be healthy in a way that like makes them feel good about themselves. It's more about the looks, and what am I going to put on Instagram, and am I looking like a certain person? And it's actually about value. So it's a little bit unfortunate and sad, because it shows the level of low self-esteem that we have in our society today. And look, I'm not saying that I'm out of this world and I've never tried anything, or I've never wanted to lose 5, 10, 15 pounds, whatever. Like, I think we've all been through some. I don't actually know one woman that has not tried some type of diet. Like, I think that's, if you ask around, I don't know any woman that hasn't tried something.
The
uh,
trend is actually increasing in men also.
Yes, a
So
lot.
that's a bit, yeah, that's a trend that I wasn't expecting to see, but that
Yeah,
Adonis body image is also increasing and putting a
yeah.
lot of pressure.
I think social media has a lot to play with that, for sure. And how we look on social media, and we know looks is what sells. So people are even more aware of how they look, and how they should look according to the beauty standards of today. So there are very mixed messages and out there. There's the messages of social media, looking thin, looking beautiful, like what the world considers to be beautiful. And then on the other side, you have the body positivity image that's kind of showing as well, which has the best intentions in the world to kind of counteract what's going on with social media. But at the same time, we're not promoting the right things. We're promoting beauty and accepting people for who they are, which I think is amazing, but we're not promoting health.
Yeah.
So how do we bring this forward? And this is where the challenge is we're not focusing on the right thing. We're not focusing on the health physically, and the mental health related to your relationship with food, and how you deal with that. And I would love for you to share your experience with that, and I'll be happy to share mine. How have you kind of been through all those different either trends, or how was your experience with food and food disorders, if
I
any?
mean, I'm pretty open online. So I was anorexic when I was younger. I wasn't eating, I was counting the calories. I was losing more weight than what I was coming in. So I was working out and calculating every single thing. I knew the calories of everything. And then my school colleagues told the psychologist at school that I wasn't eating, and then they they kind of helped me out, and I went and started talking. That was during the time where it was a bit chaotic at home, so it was like a reflection of different things that happened. So I healed from that. I started, like, things were okay, and then later on in my life, at another personal event, I've developed binge eating, which was completely the opposite. Like, I didn't have an issue with control. I didn't have an issue with saying I'm not eating. I was completely comfortable with saying I'm okay not eating for 24 hours. I'm like completely fine, and overworking out and like burning a lot. And but at the other extreme, when that was even harder, because I had the mindset of an anorexic, and like not eating, I had like control, and now I completely lost control. So that was very difficult. It's like, and this is what I mean when people say like body positivity, because it's like they don't realize that there's something underneath that they're not dealing with, because they're just not I wasn't able to stop eating. It's like I was thinking about food I couldn't take food out of my mind, even if I wanted to. Like I'm like, people are like, just stop eating. I'm like, no, you don't get it. It's like I had no ability to control. It was beyond me, coming from someone that is super extremely disciplined. And thank God I continued working out. That was something that was like part of my lifestyle and habit. Otherwise, I think I would have taken the path of like getting obese, because like I was eating, but I just lost that sense of control. I didn't know what to do. And at some point I was like literally crying on the floor, and I called my friend. She's a psychiatrist. I'm like, I need help. I don't know what to do. I understand that I have an issue right now, and I'm not being able to control. And what should I do? And she recommended like a psychologist. And then I did my own research. And so it was just like feeling heard for a second. And I'm like, okay, I'm taking my life into account. Like this, I'm taking my life back in power. I lost some power. I don't know why. I got to figure it out. Changing the way I was eating, trying different diets. So I've been through a lot, but there was something underneath to the type of food that I was eating, the different supplements, the I was on taking different contraceptives, trying different things. My hormones were all over the place. I had some emotional challenges that I wasn't dealing with. Like, so it was a lot. It wasn't the food. It wasn't just my relationship with food. It was like so much more that I was trying to numb, not understanding, not looking at it. So I had to deal with all of this to actually say, oh, okay, finally, like I'm liking food. I could eat whatever I want. I'm not going to gain weight. I'm not going to. So I had to change to deal with all of that to be able to then be okay. And now I'm good. Like now I could eat anything. And I don't overthink. I don't overstay like, oh, how many calories. I don't even like count anymore. I just eat whatever I want. There's certain things I don't tolerate per se, because like of my skin or of different things, but it's not about the calories. It's not about the weight anymore. It's just more of how it makes me feel. Like I don't eat processed food, and I don't eat like, but those are just more specific choices. But I completely changed my relationship with food by dealing with the real core issues. So that's a bit of my story. I could speak about it for hours, but I'm gonna let you tell us a bit more about you and how you deal with dieting and your body image and all of that.
Thank you for sharing first. I know it's not always obvious to have those conversations, and I'm happy you are, because I think it shows other people that they also can open that conversation and speak about things that might seem very, very personal. But it's actually, and what I liked about your story is that you knew when to go ask for help,
Yeah.
which I think is the hardest part. A lot of people might know that they have something. They might know that they have a food disorder or an eating disorder. And of course, as you know, there's so many levels of that, right? There are some cases that are extremely severe, and there are some cases that are just starting. So it's being aware and acknowledging that you have one, I think is amazing. That's the hardest part. And then going and asking for help, because it is a very complex problem. And you need someone, you need either a therapist, a physician, a psychotherapist, like different types of professionals that need to help you kind of better understand what's going on. And it's not simply about how many calories you're eating in and out. Yeah. There's a mental health that needs to be assessed. And I hope that today, when people are listening to this, that if you ever have, struggled with eating, or, how much you're eating or what you're eating, or if it's taking too much space in your mind, that you find maybe the time to go ask a little bit to see like, what can I do better? Why am I doing this? And maybe start with therapy. And I think that that's like the best way to, there's BetterHelp, which is a great a great app for people that are looking for a therapist if they don't have, you know, the means to go see one in person. But I think actually being aware and reaching out is the first step. For me, it was very different from you. I never had a severe, let's say, food disorder or a food disorder that required necessarily like therapy. What happened in my case is I was always someone who was very intuitively eating my whole life. I never thought of food. I would eat what what my mom would cook at home. And I kind of knew what the thing, the healthy things were. I was attracted towards things that were more healthy than processed because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with, home cooked meals. So that to me was kind of like a given. Where it changed is that in my adult years, I started being more active and I started working out. And then I started looking into my food and wanting to be more healthy. And then this kind of, I'm not going to say trend because it was more something like a lifestyle that I was kind of taking on. I was working out more regularly, 4 or 5 times a week. And then I started looking into my food more like, don't eat processed food, eat more, more protein, eat less carbs, eat more fat or less fat. And, as you know, these diets have kind of changed with time. So I started being more mindful about what I was eating because I wanted to be healthier. It was honestly with good intention. It was all because I wanted to be more healthy. And then, of course, my body started changing because I was working out more often, more regularly. I was loving how I was feeling. I was eating more healthy. So then I lost weight. I was looking great. And, my body was more in shape than ever. I felt more energetic than ever. So it became kind of like an addiction in a way. I became addicted to the process. And then it became, I'm like, oh, well, then I'm going to start cutting sugar. And then I'm going to start becoming like extra healthy. Not that it's a bad thing to want to be healthy, like it was all with good intentions, but then it became a little bit too obsessive in the sense that if I would eat something that had a little bit of sugar, I would feel guilty about it. Or if I ate something that was not, as clean as it could be, felt guilty about it. Not to the point where I would stop eating or like undereat or overeat or anything like that, but enough that it became like something that I was preoccupied by every single, like every day, all day long. I was, counting my calories, all with the intentions of being more fit and not because I was worried about gaining weight or anything like that. It was more for like health reasons. But that's to show you that sometimes you can be doing all the healthy things, but you're actually going overboard with it in the sense that it becomes a mental health issue because you're spending way too much time, way too much energy on figuring out if you should eat this or that or this or that. And that I found with my personal experience to be more detrimental than actually eating the thing that's processed and that's not good for you. So that's how I kind of lived it. And I tried a lot of different diets. Like I tried, the low carb diet. I did keto for 6 months. Felt amazing on it. I think it was a very, very good, like I felt physically good with it, mentally good with it, but it was extremely hard to do. Like you couldn't eat any fruits, you couldn't eat any carbs, so it was very difficult, especially socially when you're going out with friends or in restaurants. So it was positive in a way, but at the same time, it was not sustainable. It's not something that I could do for the rest of my life. And I didn't need to do that for the rest of my life. I wanted to try it and see what the impact of that was because I heard about it. Same thing with intermittent fasting. I did intermittent fasting for years where I would not have breakfast until 6 hours since my last meal, and then I would have my meals in the same 8 hours throughout the day. Felt really good with that as well. But then it became sometimes a little bit too obsessive because you're like, oh, I'm hungry, but like it hasn't been 16 hours, so I'm waiting for like that extra hour before I can eat. And now when I think about it, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like now I'm able to see it this way. But back then it was like, no, I want to be disciplined. And it was more about discipline than anything and kind of proving myself that I can do something. And then with that, trying all these different diets just for the sake of health, actually, like really for that. I reached a point where I was actually not feeling good in my body. Not feeling good in the sense that like my body kind of shut down. I was extremely tired. I could not like work out anymore. I was bloated all the time. I had a lot of GI issues. I did not like, I gained weight and I wasn't, eating that much more than I was in the past, or I was still working out, the same amount of time. But like gradually was gaining weight, but also not feeling good within my own skin. Could not figure out why. Tried everything. That's when I tried keto. That's when I tried other things to see if that could help. Cutting out food, cutting out gluten, cutting out sugar, doing it all. Like I've tried everything to see how am I going to feel better and get back to what I was. Like that was the goal. And then mentally it took a toll on me because it becomes part of your daily thoughts, like all the time. Like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I bloated? Is this food? I shouldn't eat that, or maybe I should eat that, or like, oh, maybe do this. So it becomes really it takes a lot of mental space. And that's why I was saying that earlier on, is when it takes too much mental space, that's where to me it's inappropriate. That's where to me it's becoming unhealthy. And what happened is, at some point in the last 2 years, I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I honestly told that to myself. Woke up one morning and I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm going to stop doing all this. I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry. If I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat what I feel like eating. I'm not going to restrict myself. I'm not going to not eat this or this or that or that. If I happen to be bloated, I'll be bloated. If I happen to gain weight, I'll gain weight. If I happen to whatever, I was like, I'm ready to live with whatever the consequences of this is, because I'm like, this is not healthy. Like I was recognizing that, and I had a moment where I was like, I'm done. And since, honestly, best decision I've done in my life. And since then, somehow my weight just went back slowly to what it was, to what it always has been. We all have a weight that we kind of, ever since we were, children, well, not children, but let's say young adults, that we roam around. My body just somehow naturally went back to that without me doing anything extra. Food that I thought I was intolerant to was now eating with no problem whatsoever. Food that I was not eating as often, I started appreciating more because I had like put them on the side and I'm like, oh no, this is not healthy. I can't have that. Or so the mind shift was what was necessary for me to gain my body back. And ever since, honestly, I mean, I've been doing my best in my body than I've ever done in the past 10 years. And just simply by actually being intuitive and being real and being true to myself. Of course, I make choices of like eating more healthy in general because I want my body to be healthy. And I will make choices where I'll eat, more fruits, protein, healthy meats, healthy and healthy carbs. I eat of everything. I didn't stop anything. There's not one thing that I don't eat anymore. It's just a question of moderation when it's like, the things that I know are not as well as good for us. But when I feel like it, I'll have it. When I have a piece of cake, I'll have the cake. I want to have alcohol, I'll have alcohol. It's not about restricting anymore. And it's actually about letting go of control, because I think it goes back all to controlling your body. And your body is so intelligent. Your body is so well made. We can try as much as we want to control it, but it knows exactly what it's doing. And then when you let it be, and when you let it kind of do what it needs to do, it will be good to you. So for me, it was about letting go of control of how I should be eating and how I should be, managing all that, and kind of letting my mindset and that mental space, like actually be used for something better, and use that energy for other things that are positive, and not focusing and focusing and focusing on that all the time. So that's what my experience has been with dieting, with food, with how I've handled it. And it's not always easy. Sometimes, you have those moments where you're like, oh, I shouldn't eat this, or oh, I should eat that. But now I'm able to be like, no, do you really want to eat this? Then yeah, just go for it. That's it. Like no more trying to control my body, and kind of letting it be. And somehow it knows what to do, and it knows how to treat you right if you treat it right.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's a beautiful message and conclusion in terms of how you were able to just let go and listen to yourself and surrender and just be and trust your body. Instead of
Exactly.
trying to let your mind, you just like let it be and you're like, no, I trust you. I know you're gonna do me good. I'm
Exactly.
gonna feed you whatever you feel like eating, and I know you'll give me back the feelings that I want. So it's just having that good relationship with your own,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful message in terms of trying to let go and building that relationship with oneself. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, of course. And I think it's also important to know that, like I was saying, like your body knows what's best for you, but it's also a matter of doing the right things for your body. And now I approach food and I approach health in a way that, like, I want my body to be good. I want
Yeah.
it to be as healthy as possible, and to be, to help me be active and have vitality all day long. And what can I do to do that? And it's not by restricting, and
Yeah.
it's not by not eating, and it's not by skipping a meal, and it's not by, not eating, not choosing to eat carbs or fat or this. We need all these. We need the fats.
I
We need
think
the carbs. We need, the meat. We need the protein, and we need to treat our body well. And mentally, that also has an impact. So if you're using your mindset to kind of help you, it will make you more healthy. I truly, truly believe, that's my own personal experience, that mindset trumps everything else when it
yeah,
comes to
definitely. Like
everything
mind
else.
over matter, like 200%.
1,000%.
But I do believe that everyone should like focus on listening to their own and understanding what works. Like some people thrive on keto and they find it super easy. It's like the easiest thing that they ever did. And they're just like, that's for me. On a long term, we could discuss different things. We could discuss different things about all the types of diets. And I think the message that we want to leave is that we're not leaving you with the best diet, because I don't think there is one. And I think everyone should understand what works for them. And again, trying to let go of that control, I think, was a beautiful message, and trying to deal with what's the underlying thing that food is trying to numb or to make you escape, or trying to like, is not eating trying to help you control, and is overeating trying to help you numb, and is trying to understand what it is underneath that is impacting the way that you're dieting or following a trend or feeling about your body and your self-worth and self-esteem and how you look at yourself.
Yes, totally. It's more about mental health than physical
Yeah,
appearance or physical
absolutely.
uh, image, I guess.
Thank you so much for sharing. This wraps up our podcast about dieting and mental health. Follow along for the next podcast and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.